Hello and welcome everyone. Today we have a live workshop that we are doing with some of the best growth teams and their leaders. Welcome you all folks who are interested in growth while staying on brand and delivering performance for your teams. My name is Satej. I'm the founder and CEO of Rocketium, and we are hosting this event along with Brand Equity, our partners in this. So let's start with a quick overview. And what we have today are the six panelists. I'll do a quick introduction for them, but I'll let them do the talking. For all of you who are here, there will be a lot of questions that come to your mind as you see this content. So please add it to the Q&A section so our panelists can see those. And towards the end, we'll take all the questions. So thank you once again for joining, and let's get started. So before we go into a lot of detail that our practitioners are going to talk about, I wanted to set a little bit of context as to why growth campaigns are different and why we are even doing this session. So when you see growth campaigns, they are different from brand content, social content, or even the user interface that you would be designing, where the frequency of change of the content is very high and the number of versions that you have are going to be very high, right? So if you look at it in this 2x2, if you have to get performance, you have to keep changing what the messaging is quite often, and you have to make multiple versions because you don't know what's the right thing for each audience, and you obviously want to experiment and personalize. So that's what ends up happening, which is that changes are frequent, versions are frequent, and the teams need a lot of agility and scale. And that is what we'll hear from today's practitioners. They are heads of marketing, growth, and they work closely with analytics teams, category teams, as the case might be. Also, we've tried our best to keep this audience, the panelists, quite diverse, because across different industries, across different sizes of companies, you want to hear if there are repeating strategies, if there are totally different strategies, so you get a feel of how things work in different companies. So with that, let's get started with our first panelist. We have Amit Fadke from Rebel Foods. Amit, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Satej. Hi, this is Amit, and I run growth and digital marketing for Rebel Foods. For people who are not very familiar with Rebel Foods, we are a pioneering cloud kitchen company. We run a lot of brands under our umbrellas, right? We have a pizza brand called Oven Story. We've got a biryani brand called Behroo's, a fast food brand called Fasos, and so on. So the image that is showcased here really is for Behroo's biryani, but there are various things that work for other brands depending on the tonality of that brand, depending on the occasion that those brands are serving, depending on the missions that those brands are serving. So for example, if you look at Fasos, the imagery that we use in all of the creatives in Fasos is very quirky. The language that we use is very quirky at the same time. Oven Story is more about occasion ordering, people getting together. So that is what the brand tonality of that particular brand resonates with. So now focusing on Behroo's, what you can see here is that Behroo's, right from its onset, has been probably the first national chain for biryani. And biryani as a product is very, very personal. It's very, very emotional with people, right? So a lot of people say that biryani not really is food, but it's an emotion. And Behroo's is always played in the top end of that market because of the kind of ingredients that we use, the kind of rice that we use, the quality of meat or vegetables that we use. Behroo's has acquired a pretty premium tonality. The creative that you see here really is so as a food company, one part of the creative is made very, very easy for us, which is the food shot itself. So when it comes to food, everyone has a very strong opinion. And what we've realized over a period of time is what speaks best to the customers is a very, very prominent image of the food. That visualization is very, very important. So if you look at the right side of the screen, this really is the heat map. Now, what this tells us is where does the user focus the attention on while looking at the creative. So if you look at it, it's the center of the image that pulls most of the focus in. And that is where we also have our food shots presented. Normally, it's believed that it's about 4 places on the image that a user might kind of focus the attention on. So right at the center, where the user attention would be the maximum, is where we talk about where we show the food that we're going to serve, right? The other thing that we have is we've got a we've got a rich neutral background. What we've realized over time is that for Behrooz, this works very well. Now, again, this is very subjective because we've realized that in Google, for example, a black background might work for Behrooz. But on Facebook, black background does not always give the best results on Facebook or on Instagram. So one thing that we do is staying within the brand tonality, staying within the brand colors. We do experiment a lot with the backgrounds just to see which of those creatives that give us a higher CTR. As Satish mentioned earlier, refreshing these creators periodically is very, very important because the creative fatigue sets in within a week or two. But a few principles do stay constant. One is the hero of creators for us always is the food that we serve, because that is what connects the best to the customers. The second is what is the proposition that we are offering to the customers, right? So if you look at this, 51% of the customers are attracted to the proposition that we are giving out, which is relish free beetroot kebabs in this particular case, because this was a promotion that we were running at that particular period in time. And the last point that grabs the customer's attention is the CTA, which in this case is a hyperlinked creative which leads you to behruzbiryani.com. And the CTA is very simple, which just says order now. The proposition is the free beetroot kebabs that we are offering. If you can just go to the next slide, Satish. So just summarizing what we spoke about earlier, what you see on the left are various formats of creators that go across various channels. But again, what stays constant is that the food shots will always be the hero. The proposition will always be called out in very clear terms, because for Indian customers, now when these are performance creators, right? So if these are branding creators, these do perform a little differently, because in branding creators, we talk more about our propositions, right? So which is about the quality of ingredients that we use, the taste, the premiumness of the meat, etc., etc. If it's Behrooz, if it's a D2C platform, Eat Sure, that is where we talk about certain tenets that we hold very dear, which is about transparency, which is about not putting in any artificial colors or flavors. So branding creators typically work on that. When it comes to performance creators in India, normally what is seen is customers respond the best to a very strong value proposition. It could be a discount-led one, it could be a free product-led one, but that is very important for us to get maximum CTRs on a creative. The call to action can be very simple. It can be redirection to the app store, or it can be a redirection to the website. And yeah, the background varies again depending on the brand that we are playing with. Normally, it is the brand color, the palette, the brand palette is what defines the background. But the vectors, the images on it could be a playful, creative vector for a brand like Fasos. It could be about a party kind of a theme for a brand like Oven Story. And for a brand like Behrooz, the biryani does speak the loudest. So yeah, that's that from me. Would be happy to answer any questions later on.
Wonderful. Amit, thank you so much. We are kicking this off at the perfect time. Around lunchtime, we are seeing this content. Everybody's hungry looking at these premium photos. Thank you so much for sharing this. Folks, like I said, please add your questions to the Q&A. Amit will have some of his answers ready towards the end. So now over to Rashmi from Vahdam India.
Thanks, Satish. Hi, everyone. Rashmi this side. I'm currently building and growing D2C at Vahdam. Vahdam is a global brand, Indian brand, scaling globally. We ship to more than 83 plus countries, and with an aim to bring the best of Indian wellness to the world. Now I'll cut it short and jump into creative experimentation at Vahdam. So like every growth team, the core DNA is experimentation. Creative being the most important part of it. The first I would want to touch upon is this is something that I've not seen a lot of brands doing, is around testing the creative unit itself, and this is very, very important for any major sale event, major event like for suppose Diwali in India or a Black Friday, Cyber Monday in the US. It's super critical to test creative unit because that's what's driving click. because these are the events where you're spending, I'm assuming, roughly 30% of your yearly ad spend or 40% of your yearly ad spend. So super, super critical for, testing creative units. One of the tests that we ran only last year, last year BFCM in the US was around, testing these purely in terms of, maybe color, maybe, the shape and size that we use in these creative units. And we noticed a CTR to be, doubled with, one of these versions. So that's the impact of a creative unit, and should be tested at least for every key sale event or every key, holiday event that's important for a given country. Satish, next slide, please. Second is in terms of the first frame, and this is something that is a kind of a controversial topic. A lot of brands tend to sway towards adding their brand elements, adding logos, talking about having that brand language and all. But this has been happening more recently, and I don't know if it's a TikTok impact or if, more like a uplifting more towards consumption of influencer content. A lot of content which is native in appeal tends to drive higher clicks than something which appears like an ad right away. Okay, and this is something then again we tested last year around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where one content of these two videos was exactly the same script, same product, everything is the same, the model is the same, right? It's just that in one we're directly talking about, okay, what is this ad about? We're talking about our sale that we're running up to 60% off, and the other is very native in appeal, has no communication, at least on the main creative frame, right? Copies are exactly the same, everything else, it's a true test, right? And in this, we noticed a CTR of as high as 4 times higher in one of the version compared to the other. And this is super, super important to try and test. Okay, instead of understanding what as a brand we want to push to our customers, it's important to understand what kind of content is being consumed by users, right, in their feed. Specifically when in Facebook, more of placements tend to drive towards Instagram, depending upon the category that you are in, the domain that you are in. So yeah, that's one important piece to look at. And the way we test is we identify, say, a lot of our best performing, say, videos. We understand which videos, say, have high, say, thumbs up ratio in terms of the clicks, and just experiment with the first frame. The rest of the content can remain the same. That reduces the turnaround time and increases the pace of experimentation. Second that we tested, another test that we did very recently was testing when we are running sales, and it's does a pure sale communication work well, or when we add elements related to different products in it. And more than often we have noticed anything which is very clear, concise, sharp communication, right? Not a lot of fuss around it, not a lot of elements to confuse the customer. We have less attention span time, and it's reducing day by day. It's very, very important to focus on what are you trying to communicate. And there's something that we have seen, and wherever we have a very clear, precise communication, a short communication, right, that has a higher CTR as compared to when we add a lot of elements to our communication. This is something that we, for like when we talk about creative experimentation, email is a very, very important sort of channel there. We do a lot of testing in terms of the creative concepts itself, but one very, very important thing that I would recommend every brand to test it out is in terms of format, right? We tend to, as brands, tend to divert towards using a lot of creative appeal and, adding a lot of elements in terms of, creative, be it product, be it personas, products and offers, and, different elements of the brand itself. Text variation is something that also works well for brands. The reason behind that being, like I said, in terms of, say social, a very native and influencer kind of content work has been working well. Reason is because it's, very native to how a user is consuming that channel. Similarly to email, it's about conversation. Can we have, a conversation with our customers and help them understand where we're coming from, and keep it conversation, keep it light, right? Help them understand why it's important, why it's so, suppose, we did this one campaign around one kind of product launches. So let's talk about, where did this product come from? How did this, we launched this product, why are we launching it? Why it's important? What's unique about this product? So yeah, more than like again, like I mentioned, creative versions, text versions tend to, drive a higher, conversions as compared to, I would say creative-based version. Again, a text-based version will have a less turnaround time, that too. So something to maybe test for. Again, another email test that this is something that we can test across different formats, be it Google Ads, Facebook, TikTok, email, etc. And that's around testing the product. So in this particular variation, we had everything constant. The only thing changing was the product. We were able to identify, and specifically for new launches when we're launching a range, right? Every range will have 1 or 2 hero products, and this is a good tactic to identify what that hero product is. We can, there are multiple ways of conducting these tests. It can be done through, a network of, survey in a network. It can be done through, just selecting a random small subset in your entire audience, be it email, be it, Facebook on a smaller budget, and test it out. What product is really, because you don't want to invest all your resources in developing all the variation for all products, or maybe, based on your assumption, okay, these 2 products are my hero products. No, it's good to test it out and identify which product is driving more clicks and tends to will drive more revenue for a particular category or a new collection, and then develop more variations around it based on the earlier past successes. So this basically helped us in understanding last year, okay, which iced tea will drive higher clicks for us, higher conversion for us, and we leverage that to then further build content for that particular product, and not develop it for all the entire collection or a specific products which we feel will do well. So in short, just a few learnings in terms of format. Very, very important to test video or static and purely when it comes to specifically channels like, say, Facebook and all. It's good to have a mix of both video and static because it tends to sort of stabilize CPM overall. However, it's good to understand which content is leading to a higher overall, overall in terms of ROAS for sure, but as well as CTR. And we have seen immense impact of just testing format at Vahdam, right? Then, like I mentioned, first frame is important. The rest of the content in a video or a GIF can remain the same. Just testing the first frame is very important because that drives click-through rate, the very first frame. That's very, very dominating a part of the entire creative story. Another is model. By model, I don't mean faces. I think we should always select faces which are in line with the brand persona, so no questions about that. But more about whether to even have a model, not have a model. Do you want to run ads which has faces, which talks about user stories, or do you want to talk about, pitch in your product? And these are basically relevant for different stages of the funnel. So maybe for a pure acquisition stage, you want to talk about, how a particular user's, routine changed for good by using your products, or, made an impact in their life. Things like that, right? So that's something that's very important. Or maybe once a user lands on your website, interacts, does not buy, then you want to maybe talk about specific product, product category, product benefit, depending on which content the user engaged with. Next is logo. In terms of, do you want to keep your creatives more in terms of brand guidelines, I understand, but more in terms of like an advertisement, or do you want to give a native appeal to it, right? Do you want to make it look like it is a native content in line with the day-to-day content that a user consumes, right? Make their feed more interesting, in short. And the last one would be call to action. This is something that I've not seen a lot of tremendous impact happening or immense change improvement happening because of this. However, the difference that I've seen is when we're running pure performance marketing ads, in terms of having a product ad, we will say shop now. If a sales ad, we'll talk about say shop now. But when we are using say influencer content, or we're using some kind of content marketing kind of marketing kind of funnels, right? There are no more kind of CTA also works, but not an element which would really impact performance immensely. So yeah, those are a few factors. One last thing that I would like to touch upon is, I think this is something that a lot of brands reach out to, and a lot of growth hackers sort of talk about, is there are so many elements that we could be testing, right? What is really worth testing? Now, this is really dependent on the channel that you're talking about. For suppose if you're talking about email, you might want to first test your subject lines and then creatives. Now, purely talking about from say a Facebook perspective here, because that's most of our brands I think are sort of spending a lot there. So it's about understanding, okay, what's the impact as compared to the effort that I'm putting, the effort in terms of time, resources, money, everything, right? I feel that when it comes, and we have a limited duration, right? In Facebook, you will require say 5 to 7 days of running a test. So you cannot be testing everything out there. So copy and CTA do not tend to have that immense an impact as compared to other elements like products and concept, though they require very less amount of effort, right? However, you need to see, okay, effort in terms of time that I have to spend 7 days in just testing a copy and given the impact they take. Not sure if it's really worth it. Offer is something that I would recommend brands to be testing specifically for bottom of funnel audiences. People who have landed on the site, added product to cart, but did not convert, right? For those people, and even retention, tactics. Offer is something that you might want to test out as a flat 20, flat 30, flat 15, or up to 40, up to 60, different kind of offer levers that work. Another is value proposition and moments. That is immensely important to understand if a person is buying a particular category. For suppose, I'll take an example. For suppose if a person is buying, say, herbal teas from us, right? Is it for a stress-free life? Is it for building immunity? Is it for building, having a better, digestion system, for detox, etc. So we need to understand what, for a particular category, what is that value proposition that is driving clicks, that is driving conversions. So that's very, very important to test. Before that, it's important to test product. And product, the impact of a product is immensely important, because if the product is not, if we have not selected the right product to market, then the rest of it goes for a toss. So the first and the most important thing is to test for the product. Even when launching new collection, it's good to identify hero products by running small, test on random audiences, and then identify our best-selling product, and then understand what value proposition we should be testing for. Last two pieces there, formats and concept. Formats is important to test video statics, because that's something that's driving click again. Requires relatively less effort, requires relatively more effort as compared to different concept. By concept I mean, do you want to talk about collection story? Do you want to talk about your users, influencer story, things like that? So few things to keep in mind, and I'm hoping this gives some bit of an idea in terms of impact and effort. And these can keep changing from brand to a brand. These are some learnings from from Vahdam specifically, where we have seen the most impact and the effort that we've put in. So I'm hoping that helps.
Great.
Thank you.
Rashmi, this was terrific. I know for everyone, this would be the money shot where they would be thinking, hey, we don't have any clarity like this for our campaign. So I think hopefully a lot of people are taking a screenshot and want to figure out their own version of this graph. I think that would be very helpful. And as you could tell from the comparison, one in the case of Amit, there are some number of products, but not as numerous as in the case of what Rashmi has to deal with, right? So the strategy might end up being a little bit different. So it's worth experimenting and figuring out your mix. So now we have a very different sort of a product, something that all of us can relate to. We have Hamid Naeem from Starz Play taking over.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I am from Starz Play. I represent growth team at Starz Play, and so we are different business model. We are in OTT, and the region which I represent is the MENA region. Starz Play is an OTT just similar to Netflix and Amazon Prime, which is very renowned in India. So I am part of the growth team, growth as a function of performance marketing, and I am from its headquarters is in UAE, and we operate in, and I'm responsible for the growth of Middle East and North Africa region. So in our case, the business model is very typical, different. So because in subscription, you first, the user takes a trial, and then from trial, the user converts to paying you, and then it's the LTV where you need to optimize towards. So definitely the first measurement of the creative is to drive better CTRs. But in our case, so we have built our internal tools as well, that how the some creatives are driving CTRs, but again, it ends up driving a better LTV. So the first experiment which above in your screen is that, so in our case, it's an entertainment industry, and then definitely statics don't work very well as opposed to the video content. So we have to somehow come up with video content. And imagine if you have, let's say, a million content in your database, and then you need to advertise. So you cannot somehow run individual content. So we try to come up with, let's say, a strategy that how do we promote multi-content in a single frame. So we tested out two types of creative. So the left side was
Sorry, Amit, go on.
Yeah. So the idea was that when Dexter last November, Dexter had the latest season, so we wanted to somehow push Dexter, but definitely with some impact of that the user will not be able to will not sign up only for Dexter. We need to build a whole story that, okay, so you are signing up for Dexter, but we have this content as well. So in the left frame, we pulled around some other content that we wanted to somehow push with Dexter, that we thought that user can relate it, and it will drive better results. And in the right side, it has a different story of how we promote multi-content.
Yeah, let me play that.
Someone took the butcher knife.
Are you Dexter Morgan?
Monsters walk among us.
Watch now on Starz Play.
Yeah, so technically, as per a typical user, that the left, the frame which is on the left side should perform better. But in terms of the CTRs, this right side creative outperformed the left side of creative. But definitely CTR is not the ultimate metric. We need to have a certain, through CTR, we drive trials and then paying you as well. But in terms of CTR, the right side creative was better, but the left side creative outperformed the right side in terms of other KPIs, which are after CTRs. So as a brand in our vertical, we have to come up with such strategies where we can test out different creatives. And the challenge again is that how do you have so much content? How do you incorporate multiple content in a single frame? And again, you know that the users have very limited time frames. Then in 6 to 15 seconds, you have to capture the user. So that is a big challenge for us. But somehow we test, experiment using these techniques to yeah. So in terms of the decision vectors, so we not only sell a subscription of our content, we have some add-ons, I mean, some other channels as well. So I put cricket as an example that everyone can relate, and it is the recent T20 World Cup. So we have different products as well, product lines as well, that we have live sporting as well, in which there is FIFA, there is rugby, there is others, golf and other, and then we have cricket as well. So in the decision vector, the first thing, because we are primarily operating in GCC region, language comes very important for us. So let's say, if you can see the flash creative. So let's say in how we use language is that, again, in Middle East, Arabic is very strong, and then you need to have creatives with both languages and see how the language is performing on both of the creatives. So let's say definitely in English will get a higher CTR, but in our case, so what we have learned is that Arabic usually gets higher CTR, but in our case, Arabic, because our business model drives, because performance drives from LTV, and we have up to 30 MOPs. User can pay via telcos, SLR, do STC, and then we have credit card as well, and then we have a lot of other payment methods as well. So what we have learned is that we use language as well to drive our LTV with the MOP as well. So to cut the story short, let's say the Arabic language drives us a higher LTV, lifetime values, because it's a subscription-based business, and the user has to stay us with a longer duration. So the longer the user stays, the higher revenue we make. So that is kind of important factor for in the language. And then the value proposition, exclusivity, and then multiple mode of payment. So when we show, let's say, exclusivity and the user can pay via multiple payment methods, then we have seen that the CTR spikes up by 2% as opposed to if we are not showing, let's say, multiple payment methods, because it's not a cash on delivery model. It's an OTT, you need to pay online, and then if definitely the entire market will not have credit cards, so you need to come up with multiple payment methods, and advertising with multiple payment methods drives a better clicks to our creatives. Call to action. So again, in our case, we use multiple call to action. So let's say subscribe, watch now, or sign up, and some others as well, trial and etc. So in terms of the call to actions, different call to action has a different impact on the creatives. But overall call to action, I mean, in our learning, call to action was not major decision maker in terms of the creatives. And then again, renowned, when we talk about models, then by models, I talk about renowned faces. So a typical example would be, if you see the cricket in this example. So when we launched the ICC T20 World Cup, so we created multiple variants. So let's say one without renowned faces cricketers, and then one definitely with these renowned faces cricketers. And then these renowned face cricketers drive 5x higher CTR. And the last point is that price. So price is very complicated for us. So let's say in our core package, when I say core package, I mean not the sporting events, the other content. We usually don't mention price because in a subscription-based business, price is already very low, and you don't have to mention that. And it's not that we will offer discount and then price will change monthly. So price usually stays the same. So we don't really rely on price. But so what we learned from this cricket, in sporting events, when you mention price, that spikes up your performance. So that's how somehow we use creatives to somehow impact our growth performance. And again, it's all about how you measure the performance of the creative. Yes, the first KPI is CTR, but in our case, we have to look at an LTV level. And so CTR, then which creative is driving a certain MOB, because we have LTV of higher LTV of certain MOBs. Imagine we have 30 MOBs, so you need to map CTR with creative with using CTR with an MOB, and then ultimately a higher LTV. So that's how the creative strategy works for us, and that's how we're learning and continuously improving our creatives.
Superb. Thank you so much, Amit, for sharing. I think people can already see some patterns coming up over here, but at the same time, they are starting to see some things that are totally different, right? In one case, there would be no model. The model is the product, right? As in the case of Rebel Foods. In the case of Vahdam, there is a UGC kind of an element. There is no renowned faces, whereas in your case, that is what they would see. So what is at least a takeaway for me is that all of these heads of growth who are delivering performance for their brands and expanding it, they have deep knowledge and understanding of their business and what their users respond to. Some of it is discovered through experiments, some of it is just tribal knowledge that they have. So great learning so far. Next we have Abhimanyu Mishra from Bewakoof. Abhimanyu, over to you.
Yeah, I think my video is off, Satej. If you could, I think the host has stopped it. It's the message that I'm receiving.
Maybe you can get started. I think the ET brand equity team might enable that.
Sure. All right. Hi everyone. This is Abhimanyu. I'm the CMO of Bewakoof. I've been at Bewakoof since the start, 10 years now. We started off as a 3-4 member team in college in a chawl in Bombay, and that journey from selling our first t-shirt to doing over 400 crores a year, it's been tremendous. And a lot of, I think my personal growth chart, right, is pretty crazy, I would say. And lots of learnings and lots of course, insights, etc., that we've kind of collected in the last 10 years. So already, I think the people who've already presented and spoken about very, very relevant and valid pointers. So I'll not cover a lot, and I'll keep it quick. There are 2-3 things that I'd like to just highlight. And primarily, this is something that we've experienced and what we went through. So we used to rely a lot on Facebook and Google, and those being two giants that they are, they took a lot, pretty much 90% of our marketing spends that we had on a monthly basis. Now, within that spend, we were doing a bunch of creatives. If you could, Steve, if you could go back to the previous slide, yeah. So when we were at a stage where we were doing Google ads and Facebook ads, Instagram ads, 2D ads, etc., all the different formats, and we were creating creatives internally. There was a team of 8 people, and I think around 2019-20, the Facebook and Google teams themselves came up to us and said that for e-commerce, where you have a big catalog and you have a lot of products, it makes more sense to do a dynamic product ad, which is driven by your feed in the XML format. Now that directly fetches all the products from your portal, and the images also fetched from there. And we've ever since, we've made that change. We've stopped really going into manual creatives and doing a lot of experiments, because the experience and the machine learning capacity of Facebook and Google, right, was much more beneficial to us. So the testing that we do is on a catalog level. The creative frame that we do is everything on a dynamic ad level now. This was our biggest, biggest shift in marketing that we did. Currently, the setup is that 70% of our marketing spends goes on catalog ads, where the product is directly fetched from the website, and Google and Facebook's algorithm optimize products according to which user is getting targeted, and their machine learning is that strong that it gets us more results than compared to when we run our ads and when we make our creatives manually. So we've definitely shifted over there, but the downside of that is it does not help you in brand awareness. It does not help you in brand building, because it's still a catalog image, or it's your website images, product images that are taken. So how do you define, how do you make sure that your brand perception and tonality is also getting conveyed? So we try to do what we can do in the limited frame of work with catalog ads, but the remaining 30%, we utilize our budget on brand awareness and branding. So our 2 segments here in Bewakoof is performance marketing and branding, and it's a 70-30 ratio. The 30%, we make sure that we work around creatives and make target our audiences with some set frequency, so that they keep seeing these creatives and communications as well. Now, one thing I want to call out, and I think a large part of it is already covered earlier, is celebrity usage, right? This is something we didn't do for 9 years, but the day we did it, we signed Rajkumar Rao and Siddharth Malhotra, Sania Malhotra, and Fatima Sana Sheikh as well. And these weren't big budget brand endorsements. We, for example, Rajkumar Rao, we signed for 3 months at a much optimized commercial. But the response that we saw with our campaign and our CTRs, and what we did was we took a shoot with him and superimposed graphics on him, made sure that he's everywhere. Someone who opens the app, someone who's on the first banner, our notifications. We just made sure we're utilizing those faces everywhere. And some of the event creatives that we did, we saw wherever we were using Rajkumar and Siddharth Malhotra's face. Siddharth Malhotra is currently the brand ambassador. Now, that has definitely given us a much better CTR. So upwards to even 50% more CTR than we generally do with our other creatives. But even on a bad day, it generally has 15 to 25% more CTR than normal. So for any brand that can explore this, we were under the understanding, or we had that impression that it's very expensive, some of these faces that we could use or get on board with the brands. But it turned out there is, the benefit was much more versus the investment, and it paid off well. And we plan to continue to do this again. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. This just was one example on the second pointer, which is the third slider as well. is that when we use normal product images, or you have a normal fashion looking shoot, what we've realized is our thematic shoots, right? And this is an MPA, which is a multi-product ad that we use on Instagram. This is not cut currently, but this will be split into different cards. So this is 2 cards that you're seeing. Split is in between. This has performed much better than some of the normal photo shoot ads that we do. So if you can go to the next slide, you can see the difference in the flavor that it adds. So a large part of our marketing spend and goes into pulling off these shoots. So our studio and what props we have, the kind of imagery that we do on a weekly basis. So we do about 4 to 5 shoots a month, where we make sure some of the collections that we're launching or some of the existing categories, they get featured in some thematic shoot or not. And that is then taken on the ads. And we also make sure that this is also used in our catalog images, the performance marketing side, where the first card or the product that is being fetched from the website, that is also improved, and it's not a normal catalog model on a white background, but it's a thematic shoot. And that's a lot of difference. We've seen as much as even 2x of performance coming in from thematic multi-product ads versus a normal catalog ad. But essentially, you would always find these CTRs in the performance for these ads and shoots images for obvious reasons, because this is more attractive, more engaging versus some of the white background shoots or e-commerce shoots that you see. That's pretty much my 2 big call-outs here, Satish. I don't want to go into detail. A lot of things were already covered. We can skip the next slide. The next slide is essentially how our catalog images look. But these are all driven by feed ads from Google and Facebook.
Got it. Abhimanyu, thank you so much for sharing. Like you said, you do echo some of the points that others have made, but at the same time, you are making one important point, which is that in your case, the catalog ads where there is little to no creative, those also perform well. So that again goes to show the reason for this diversity of panelists was that in some cases some things work, in some cases something else. So that's important to validate. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. And great to see your own personal growth through the journey of Bewakoof. So keep it up. So next we have Rajeshwar Rao from Clovia. Rajeshwar, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Satish. So I'm Rajeshwar. I'm the VP at Clovia. So Clovia is the leading lingerie, for an active brand. So I basically look after the B2C business and digital marketing at Clovia. So yeah, coming to experiments. The first experiment which we will talk about is the background. So initially we used to use a lot of, white backgrounds, gray backgrounds, and pink color backgrounds, more of feminine nature. But so what happens is, apart from offers and coupons, theme-based collections work really well for us. So this is one such theme. So the theme name is Shades of Blue. So then we thought, we'll use a different color. Apart from the standard colors. So that's when we use this, and the kind of impact which we've seen is, tremendous, revenue. We've seen 2.7x kind of uptake, and CTR is about 96%. And the second one is a proven model, so whenever we use single, model image, this short or email, so no one has to scroll down. It comes in a single screen. So this we've experimented, way before, and this worked really well. So we implemented the, test and tried experiment along with a different experiment, which is background, right? So this is the first experiment which we tried, and which is very good results.
Rajeshwar, could you speak up a little bit? At least I'm not able to hear. So just speak up a little bit. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And the second experiment is around font and models, basically experimentation typography. So, see, whenever we give any coupons or discounts, we get a certain percentage of CTR, right? And the point was, how do we enhance it further? If let's say, we call out of coupons or discounts, we get X percentage. And how do we take to the next level? That's when we thought, we play a bit with font and model shoot. And so the graphic teams has team has come up with this kind of creative, and so when we've tested this, so apart from this, we've also included, value proposition, value proposition in terms of different types of looks for different personalities, So with this, experiment, we've seen, apart from, because CTR is already at a different level because of this, 50% of discount, but with the typography experiment, we've seen 28% further improvement in terms of CTR, Yeah, next. And the third experiment is on product shoot. So, generally product shoot involves, product costs, right? And the tag for product shoot is very high. So, if you have to send out, 5 different emailers in a week, it's difficult to manage model shoots, So that's when we thought, by taking, inspiration from elsewhere. So we thought of going for a flat list shoot. So it has been done by the graphics team itself, and we put it in a nice way, and we've also added some value proposition to it by highlighting USPs of this specific range. So this image is around thongs, and so the kind of impact we've seen is about 52% improvement in terms of CTR, and revenue has gone up to 32%. So we've implemented the same experiment results in our catalog shoot also. So what happens is, in certain categories, so every day we get new products, right? So we've tested this, flat list shoot in different categories, and it started performing really well. So we could save more than shoot costs over there, So that way this experiment has helped us. And when it comes to social media, we do a lot of experiments, and some of those experiments were like related content, doodles, memes, and polygons and images, and social media trends. So we keep experimenting a lot of these on social media, especially on Instagram. So one of such experiments are like we played on imagery, and the experiment is on doodles along with related content, So the kind of impact is about 3x. So from the regular posts, which we post on Instagram. So what we do is we've started collaborating with a lot of doodlers and illustrators, and we started creating more such creatives, Yeah, next. And when it comes to, Clovia creative guidelines, when it comes to colors, we pick colors, that represent the audience, which are bright, colorful, beautiful. And in model shoots, expressions and models of developers are like happy, playful, and beautiful. This, Clovia stands for joy, And when it comes to illustrations and graphics, very minimal and new designs, rage amongst millennial generation, especially in social media. And copy, we keep very simple, relatable, and conversational, just to give a common touch instead of being, very formal as a brand, And CT will be pretty simple. If it is shop now, we'll take them to the specific products page. Is again, download the app, we'll take them to the Play Store or App Store. So we try and give, exact same landing pages, Yeah, that's pretty much about it from there.
Thank you so much, Rajeshwar. This was short and sweet, but a lot of takeaways for folks. They can now compare to what other teams are doing and start to see some of those similarities. So thanks for sharing. And now we have our final expert. We have Karan Bhatia from Eruditus. Karan, over to you.
Thanks, Satej. Hi, everyone. Satej, I'm on mobile web. Just in case you see my video flickering, please give me a sign. I'll go off video. And
I can't see your video because I'm screen sharing, but let's hope the telecom gods are kind to us.
Yeah, thanks to Airtel, I had to be on mobile web. Okay, so my name is Karan. I drive performance at Eruditus. You also might have seen Emeritus as a brand's name. So this is different from biryani fashion cricket. This is boring. This is education. No photo shoots, no celebrities, no models, no hard push. So yeah, that's the way of life. So yeah, some context on business. We are not a platform company. I would be going to talk about performance ads on Facebook, which are essentially direct response ads for us. This is not trying to create brand. This is trying to elicit a lead on a landing page. Facebook happens to be our largest channel by miles. We marketed around 50 to 60 countries, so different kind of audiences. So I quickly talk about, our core learnings before I go to creatives and try and show, how these things worked out. I mean, this happens in a lot of business, but it's very strong in education. Let's say you're marketing a course, you will have different kinds of people enrolling for a given course. Everyone would have different aspirations for the same set of course. So how do you find those, sub cohorts for a given course, right? Let's say you're marketing a digital marketing course from Wharton. There would be people out who aren't really interested in learning. They know digital marketing, they are actively working, but they're looking for endorsement. This business is about endorsement. They would want to study with people who are in Wharton. They would want to interact with Wharton alumni, Wharton faculty. So essentially, they are looking for a certificate and endorsement from Wharton. They would be people who would be looking to, move to a different space in career. So they're looking for a career outcome. There would be people who are looking for, tangible learning outcomes. How do I learn to use data science in digital marketing? And they wouldn't be really bothered about different things. So for us, the strongest lever is try and find out who is your TG, why are they enrolling, what are they enrolling for. A lot of times, as Satyaj said, that's tribal knowledge, but a lot of times you have to find that out through testing. So that's one bit. Then how we look at creatives, these are essentially ongoing campaigns, right? You keep taking enrollments cohort after cohort throughout the year. So you have a set of creatives running, and what we try to do is, use a methodology called winners versus challengers. Experimentation has to challenge what's an ongoing winner for a given course, given market, given campaign. Now, this will vary a lot. This will vary. There is no set playbook we have realized over the last 3 years. It changes a lot. It changes depending on the country you're marketing in, the course you are marketing for. It changes how competition shapes up. 1 year back, if I had a flagship course in marketing from a certain B school, I have 5 other courses now in the market with similar Ivy League colleges. Your campaigns will start behaving differently. So, half of your mindset, half of your observation has to be intrinsic on platform, your numbers, but also keep an eye on what's happening on the competition. We essentially deliver ROI. We deliver cost of acquisition. That's the final metric for the entire org. But we realized that the creative performance team has to, keep CTRs as their North Star metric. And over, last few years, you also realize that it's not an absolute CTR which you are trying to get to. It's the rate of decay of your CTRs which determine your ROI. So a lot of your campaigns might be running, for example, at 0.2% CTR and doing really well, versus campaigns which are running at 0.5 CTR, but drop off to 0.4 after 3-4 months. Facebook will penalize you more for that campaign versus some 0.2 CTR, because all of this at the end of the day is a function of where you are in the competition. If you have a killer product mix, don't really worry about CTR, but if you have to make space in the competition, then these things become essential. The creative fatigue becomes essential. We work at scale, 20 to 30, copywriters, designers, rolling out hundreds, thousands of creatives every quarter. So we look at a certain nomenclature. We try and put, what's in the creative in the file name, so that after 1 year, 2 year, you have a massive data bank, data which can be analyzed. What works. You simply go back to 2 years data and say, does certain color work better? Does certain kind of photography work better? What messages work better? All of that happen to be part of our creative name. So that helps a lot. Then I think what's different and I think important for us is when you have a massive team spread across serving different line of businesses, different geographies, it's important that creative team essentially owns the CTR and performance, the creative success. We don't want them to be designers and copywriters. They essentially have to act as product marketers, because no one team or person can solve for this. you need your creative team to be, daily be in analytics, in numbers, and start, looking at your CTRs and start working towards that. So that helps a lot when there are two different, teams working on that metric, not just performance marketers, but creative team also. Satish, if you could go to next slide. Satish, if you could move to the next slide.
Karan, can't you see the screen? You're fine. Okay.
I think there's a lag. There's a lag. Yeah, I can see it now. So yeah, typical anatomy of a Facebook ad. Essentially, this is what it boils down to for us. For a lot of other people, we test out different things. What's happening in the out of creative copy, what's your core message, what's your secondary message, what's your background visual. We've tested these out over last few months and realized that, for us, some things stand out. I remember what Rashmi said in effort versus impact. The copy was right at the bottom. For us, it happens to be at the extreme other end. Copy is our core lever and not background or not visuals. Visuals do help us when we're trying to solve for fatigue in trying to get those thumb-stopping CTRs. But essentially, this is about copy. Largely because it's not an impulsive buy. Imagery won't, suck the user in when he's looking at the feed. He thinks a lot. It's a long buying cycle. So you have to, talk in terms of outcomes. So essentially, it's copy, the core message and secondary message, interplay of these two things, which work really well for us. Satish, we can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we've been trying to test backgrounds, colors. We have seen things like, the blue background does not work. White background works really well on Facebook. No real hypothesis why, but that's how it has been. So testing out different colors, testing out, single solid color versus couple of two color contrast creatives. So these are basically trying to stand out in the feed in terms of visual appeal, visual template. But these don't really, they're not big impact for us. These are like ongoing small experiments. The biggest impact is obviously value proposition. So in our industry, what people look out for is three things. The school's endorsement certificate, is that the core aspiration for the user? Is he looking for career outcomes or is he looking for learning outcomes? So different courses based on the kind of competition they have will have different kind of creatives working well. What works for us instead of background colors is what do we use in model? The framework talks about model. For us, it's we want to use humans, we want to use school building, we want to use illustrations. And if you want to use humans, does having different ethnic diversity, showing different ethnic diversity works for you? Because if these are global B schools, a typical class would have participants from 20 to 30, 40 countries. So does that make a difference when you show a Asian versus a native white person or an Indian, those kind of things. And then smaller hygiene factors, which sometimes work really well. I remember when we started to do launch boot camps. Boot camps are a form of courses which are typically hands-on intensive. It's more towards practitioners and not high-level strategic knowledge. When boot camps started in US, they were offline first model. You used to go to a campus or a training center and learn. When we started to launch boot camps, we realized that merely mentioning the word online boot camp, just a phrase, helped us a lot, because those were then the only products in the market, or very few products in the market, which were basically boot camps with Ivy League colleges offering in an online delivery mode. So these smaller things, price points, do you want to use price points or not? Again, boils down to the fact that if you believe your course has value at that price point and it sells, don't mention price point. But if you think the price point is a key, winner over here compared to market, put that price point in the copy and in the creative, and don't worry about the fact that your creative is getting crowded or it will filter out certain clicks. Yeah, Satish, we can move to the next slide. Yeah, so these are our bootcamp courses. We started off, typical knowledge for us is that, we want to launch things quickly. So we have a certain framework where we go live quickly with a set pattern. You put your course name, you showcase your key TG's image or school's image and go live. So this is where we saw improvements, small things like having an aspirational copy, instead of saying a professional certificate in digital marketing, become a certified digital marketer. Again, low impact copy play, but high impact on CPLs. So this now becomes a standard for us wherever possible, wherever the schools are okay with it. We have a lot of brand guidelines where schools don't want to talk about career outcomes because those are not uniform outcomes for everyone in the cohort. But wherever possible, we try and use that, and that has helped us improve CPLs around 20 to 30%. So we can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, this is at the core of what we try and do. What we realized is on Facebook, when you try and find different audiences, the kind of interests you see, those are not really, these are not solid, well-defined black and white interests. Someone who knows Python, for example, will like things related to Python. Someone who wants to study Python will also, like things or pages related to Python. So for us, trying to find those smaller cohorts in a larger universe is done through creatives. This is a Python course from Columbia Business School. It's called Python for Managers, essentially for people who are from non-tech background. The problem with these things is the moment you put Python out, you will get interest from people who want to become technical Python developers, and we don't want that crowd. So, you segregate your creative and talk to these three different cohorts, show your school brand, the school building, where people who want a CBS certification would get attracted to it. Then people who are already Excel users have started to look at Python. They know a bit about it. The second creative tries to talk to them, comparing Excel and Python. And then people who are hardcore business users have not done hands-on analytics, but feel the need of it and don't want to depend on analytics team or MIS teams. Third creative tries and talks to them. And we've seen this work to a fairly good extent. These kind of demarcations in terms of copy will get you different kind of sub-cohorts in your larger Facebook targeting. Yeah, so thanks. Can move to the next one. Then in cases where you don't know what would work, we have a digital marketing course from Kellogg. It talks about the core marketing principles, but it also talks about the new age principles of how do you market, how do you blend your digital marketing practices with data, AI, automation, analytics. So we try and put out those tangible learning outcomes in creative and see what works. For example, we got decent interest from creative, which is on the right, but people did not convert. We realized that this tries and gets people who want to understand more of data, AI, but not interested in marketing. So we got initial interest, but these guys finally did not enroll. The creative on the left worked really well. It defined, what's inside the course, and that worked really well. Thanks, Atisha.
Great, Karan, thank you so much for sharing, and the telecom gods were indeed kind to us. So we can now do some Q&A, but before that, I just want to thank all of the experts for sharing their knowledge and learnings. A lot of this stuff was, probably at your fingertips. Some you had to go and figure out from your past analytics, but at least now we get a very expansive view of what different leaders are doing and what sort of a role it plays for them. So thank you all for sharing this one.